Welcome, everyone, to Northwest Digital News. I'm Kevin Hunter with Chris Bornstead and Kyle Torgerson, otherwise known as the Whiz Kid. And we are going to move on here with our beautiful Monday. It is August the 27th. And Kyle would like to give us a weather report.
Yes.
It was raining coffee.
It was raining coffee this
coffee.
morning. Yes.
I might as well get my shot in.
The Whiz Kid whizzed himself with coffee all over. He's soaked with coffee over there.
Yeah, I am actually. Fun fact. Well, other than raining coffee.
You can hear all the sympathy coming from Chris and I. We're just feeling totally
Kyle.
sorry for you, Kyle.
Hey, Kyle, see what this is? This is a lid.
This is a non-kid-proof cup. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So I've muted all their microphones except for mine. Today's going to be a high of 78 with a low of 49. It's going to be sunny. It will not be raining this week. Tomorrow's going to be some sort of freak day. It's going to be 86 with a low of 49, but then it's going back to the 70s. Here.
A freak
But
day.
Kyle will have coffee, so there's a 50% chance
See,
of spillage
you just
in
shouldn't
the
have
lap.
turned his back on. But, you know, so you're saying tomorrow is considered slightly a pool day then? Because tomorrow is like officially the last day of summer for my children and I, you know.
But that's like
they
your summer.
all go back to school on Wednesday, which will be very, very happy parent.
Doesn't that mean your summer starts?
No. I wish it did, but, you know.
Hey, it's summertime all the time for me.
I just get a couple of hours to where I don't have to deal with the kids during the middle of the day. I still have to, you know, take care of my mom and get over here for broadcasts and, you know, keep the house clean, all that wonderful stuff like
Seriously, any place where it's not 40 below zero in the wintertime, it still feels like summertime in the wintertime over here to me, because it's like 80 degrees warmer here than what I was used to years ago. So
that. Yeah, we don't get that cold over here for some reason.
that is a good thing.
We did 1 year.
I blame global warming.
Yeah. All right. Well, wipe that weather off the map and let's have some conversation about coffee. Oh, wait. No, not coffee. We're going to talk about selling your car private party and some of the little traps that you can get into doing that.
Right.
Chris?
I may have read a story online this weekend about somebody that...
You did share what happened there.
Well, I don't have the story in front of me, but it sounds like from what you can make out from the deal is that somebody sold somebody a car, and this person showed up an hour later. It sounded like wanting a refund. So, you know, that could probably cause a few issues. I could see, you know,
Correct.
Because, you know, you already have taken in the money, and you could possibly already spent it in an hour. I mean, I could spend a lot of money in an hour. It goes pretty quick.
You also don't know where your car has been and what's maybe happened to it. Like, let's say somebody said, well, let's get this thing out on I-5 and let's see how fast this baby can go.
And they could have blown it up, right?
And open it up and rip it down the highway and beat the snot out of it and bring it an hour back later and say, we don't want the car. Well, that doesn't really work too well. So we're not ready for that slide yet, Kyle.
No, we're not ready. But my, you know, reading the story, you know, my first impression and the reason why I didn't comment on it was because my mind automatically went to, well, you're kind of stuck, because I don't know, you know, if they had done this the right way. You know, there's anytime you buy a car, you sign over the title, and there's paperwork and receipts and, you know, all that wonderful stuff. So. To take a car and bring it back within an hour leads me to believe that the car was sold with some type of defect. I mean, because you just don't take a car for an hour, you know, give the guy a whole bunch of money and say, see you later, you know, have a nice life. And then an hour later you show up. I mean, so clearly there was some type of issue with the car. And the only person that was really protected in this situation, it sounds like, is the person who returned the car.
Well, we don't know yet.
Right. I mean, we don't know what the whole story is.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to help you out here on Northwest Digital News on how to sell your car private party and make sure that as the seller you're protected, because I'll tell you what, there's a fair amount of risk selling a car private party. So first of all, one of the suggestions I'd make before we even get into the details of how you can report the sale, the first thing I'd suggest is that if you're posting a vehicle for sale and somebody contacts you to meet you, you know, for the vehicle, first of all, meet them at a mall shop, a place of business, a bank, anywhere else but your home. You should never, selling stuff, especially something like that, don't have somebody meet you at your house. I think that's a really, really bad idea. And so start by having them meet you somewhere else. And in the case where there's a lien on the vehicle, which there can be, somebody can be selling a vehicle that has a loan on it. And if you're the buyer, this is a really good thing for the buyer to know, is make sure that you ask that person to meet you at the bank who is the lien holder on the vehicle and do the transaction in the parking lot, but go inside the bank and make sure that the proper people are signing off on the lien that actually is being paid off. You don't want to be buying a vehicle that you find out has a lien on it and now you're stuck with a car loan, plus you paid somebody else some cash for the car.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that has happened. And believe me, with the content that I've posted around the country on various car-related issues, oh my gosh, you hear about a lot of nightmares. So we're going to help you avoid some of the nightmares. Let's start by sharing with people how they can report the sale of a car. And well, actually, before we do that really quickly, let's talk about bill of sale. So the first thing you should do is have a bill of sale. And these are actually available online anywhere. You can just look up a bill of sale. Now, we added this on the top, the 5 most important words on this entire thing. This would have protected this particular lady we were talking about. Sold as is, no warranty. Make sure it says that very bold right on the top of your document. The most important 3 words are the sold as is, but writing no warranty is just helps add more muscle to that whole thing. Now, here's a situation that took place a few years ago back in the Midwest. I was contacted by an individual who had sold a vehicle, private party, and I'm not kidding, this was like 2 or 3 months later, the person came back, said that there was a problem with the transmission that, you know, that they felt the person hadn't properly disclosed, took them to small claims court and ended up winning a partial judgment. So the seller of the car ended up paying some money towards the replacement of the transmission in the vehicle. And you know what the judge said is that if you had wrote sold as is on the bill of sale, if you had wrote those 3 words, and I recommend writing no warranty as well, but if you had written sold as is on the bill of sale, the minute you had the money in your hand, you could have told the buyer of the car, now get your property off of my property, it's yours. It wouldn't matter if all of a sudden a tree fell on it in the next 30 seconds in the driveway. It's their car, not your car anymore.
Oh my gosh, speaking of tree, did you hear about a tree that fell on this family in Longview? And they're in their truck. We'll talk about this later, but
but we'll come back to that.
Yeah, not today.
So that's the point. And Microferrix makes a comment online when I see the tail lights. It has a new owner. Exactly. Pull out of the driveway, it's gone, there's a new owner. Make sure you protect yourself with these words. Sold as is, no warranty. Now, if you look here, this bill of sale, always complete one of these. And in some of the online sites you get, either from the state of Washington or other places, they'll tell you, make sure you write down at least the last 4 of the VIN number. This VIN number is available. In fact, if we can find a graphic so we can show people where to find that, it's actually right in the, as you're seated in the car, it'll be in the lower left corner of the windshield. It's also in the door jambs in the vehicle. On different makes and models, you can pop the hood and you'll find a little metal stamp underneath the hood where the VIN number is as well. But make sure you write down that VIN number on there. I always recommend that people get somebody's driver's license number who you sold it to. But you can see all the information that you can write in there. The make, the style, the model, color, year, VIN number, odometer reading, seller, registration number. Well,
is there any special boxes for assault cars?
For assault cars?
Yeah. I mean, no. Is there any kind of special checks or anything we need to do for that? Because every car is an assault car, right, Kevin?
Yeah, it could be. Okay, yeah.
Every single one, enough. Right? Yeah.
Hey, they're heavy enough.
Yeah. I think we better start doing extensive background checks on these
on the assault cars.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So this bill of sale, absolutely essential when you're selling a private private party. And sold as is, no warranty, you got to write it on the stuff. I mean, I don't care if you do a handwritten note that says bill of sale and sold vehicle and signature and whatever. It doesn't matter how you do it. Write sold as is, no warranty. Never let somebody drive away with any kind of a receipt or anything from you on your vehicle that does not say sold as is on it. And recommend using the words no warranty. So let's go to how then you can report this sale, because if you're the seller, you want to make sure that you're covered. You know, somebody takes your car out of your driveway and heads down the road, and what happens if they hit somebody in a traffic, intersection or something down the road? What happens?
You're liable. You're
liable. But are you? If you jump on, let me find the site here in the state of Washington. This is
how easy it is.
This is dmv.org /WA-Washington. So there's a dmv.org actually in every single state that's out there. So this is the first page you come to when you go to dmv.org, Washington, and just do a search on Google for how to sell a car private party and report the sale in the state of Washington. It'll bring you to this site. So here's some of the things that you'll need. I'm going to move out of the way here. Kyle, if you can bring that up. The vehicle license number. So whatever plates are on the vehicle. Sometimes there's not a plate on the vehicle, but write down the license plate number. The date of the sale. So if that's today's date. Sale price, if applicable. Now, sometimes you might be just gifting a car away, but you still want to do this. Name and address of the person or organization. So maybe it's a place of business that's buying it, who took ownership of the vehicle. Email address and or printer. Well, you want the printer because you're going to print this out. And last 4 characters of the VIN. Now, I really recommend you just write down the whole VIN number. Why be wondering at any point later? So this is what you're going to need. Now, it says over here on the right side, why should I file? As the seller, it's your responsibility to file a report of sale, and it protects you from any penalties and or fines incurred by the new owner. So if you do this, I would actually be sitting down on my computer, getting the information from the person, sitting down on my computer and filing this report before they even drove out of my driveway. If you haven't come to your house. Now, I recommended early in the thing, meet them somewhere else, like at a bank or credit union or a mall shop or some public place that you can meet them at. That is recommend that you meet them at a public place. But you can bring this document up on your phone. This is also available there. Bring it up on your phone and report the sale the moment it happens. And then when should I file? Now it says here that you have to do it within 5 days. If you file later, you could be responsible for any penalties or fines. State of Washington actually may fine you if you don't report the sale of your private party car. Do you know what happens with most people when a deal goes down with something like this? Is the person signs the bottom line on the title saying, I'm signing it over to whomever.
Right.
And here, give me the money. And the two people go opposite directions. There's far too many cases where there's no bill of sale. And far too many cases where nobody writes sold as is, no warranty. And far too many cases where people don't report the sale of the car online with your state. And you absolutely should do this. So, as Michael says, keep copies of everything, absolutely essential. Let's go to the next slide here. So this is the next page. When you hit next, this is where it's going to take you to. So let's bring this up. So this is information you're going to put in. Which vehicle do you want to report? Do you have a plate number? You click yes. You put in the license plate number there. And then the enter name or VIN of the vehicle. Really recommend you put the whole VIN in there. Just pop it in. But these are the steps you'll go through, and then as it'll keep guiding you through the whole process and how to fill out your report of sale. I recommend you do it right away. Don't ever get burned like this person potentially. One or the other parties here in this situation that took place that we were reading about online. One or the other of these parties are not going to be very happy because if the person who sold the vehicle actually took the time to write sold as is, they're completely covered. This vehicle was the buyer's car the minute they exchanged cash. Didn't matter if it even left the minute they exchanged cash and they had this bill of sale filled out that said sold as is. You can tell the buyer, take your property off of my property. It's theirs.
Get it out of here.
Get it out of here. Yes. So really recommend that you do that kind of stuff to make sure that you're properly covered. In the case of these people, I'm guessing that they didn't because they were asking questions online that to me were symptomatic of somebody who was a little inexperienced at selling a car and perhaps made a few mistakes in the process of selling it and potentially left the door open for either having to take the car back or other potential legal liabilities. So want to make sure that you are covered, and this is a really simple way to do it. You guys got anything you want to add on this?
You know how I feel about buying cars.
You like buying? Well, you know what? In this case, at least you're not getting the snot beat out of you over at a car dealer.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that is true.
I really recommend that people buy cars private party and sell cars private party because but again, just make sure that you take the proper steps and you protect yourself. But if you sell a car private party, you're going to get a lot more money for your vehicle. That is true in 99.9999% of the time. You're going to get a lot more money for your car selling a private party. Highly recommend you do it. Just, again, don't invite people to your driveway. Make sure you do a bill of sale. Make sure you write sold as is, no warranty on your bill of sale, and then immediately report the sale with your state's website.
Yep, they actually do rolling lookouts for these. They actually go out and actively look for people that have not switched their things over.
I have heard that they do that.
They
do.
They will even notify us before they do it too. It's really great.
Okay, so one other thing to know about. Let's bring up the example of a title that has a lien holder on it.
I'll bring that up.
Yeah, bring up the lien holder. So here's a situation of a vehicle title that has a lien on it. So here's a situation where if you're the buyer of the car, this is really important to know about. You look at the title here and it says Motorola EMP. This is credit union. Motorola Employee Credit Union is the lien holder on this particular vehicle. If you're buying this car from somebody, meet them over at the credit union, whoever the lien holder is, meet them there and go in and have conversation with the people inside and verify if there's a lien on the vehicle. Verify that the lien is being satisfied before you leave there with the vehicle. Do not drive away with a vehicle you've just bought from somebody private party without having a signature and stamp from the person that you're buying the car from and from a lien holder. Make sure it is signed off that the lien holder has been, or the lien has been waived, and you will actually get a card, a small document that indicates that the lien no longer exists. You absolutely got to have that if you're going to be buying this car with a potential loan on it. Kyle, your thoughts?
Well, people are probably wondering, oh, Kyle's not talking again. Well, it's because I'm tired because I spilled coffee all over me instead of
drinking his coffee, he spilled it. But, I did refill your cup for you. So, if you carefully turn it around and...
Almost spilled it right there. Well, look at that.
He almost spilled it again. Yes. Now you pick it up by the ear or the handle, however you want to think of that as, and you can take a little sip off that. See, the whiz kid can be taught.
No, it was too hot.
All right, we have a few other subjects we want to visit about here on the show. I hope this was helpful to you. And Chris, maybe you want to take this broadcast and post it on the link for the person who on social media had a question about sale of a vehicle.
It will get deleted. There's one social media site in our area that no matter what we do, they won't allow our posts to go on there.
Oh,
and that's just that's just the way it is.
Oh, no, that's fine.
And so
they don't want us to help anybody,
right? Yeah, they don't want us to.
Okay.
I mean,
the important news isn't important. It's only important the news that's important to them and sharing.
By any chance, is this the site that built its reputation around F-bombs and all these attacks on people and stuff like that? Is that the site we're talking about?
No, it is not.
Not that one?
No.
Yeah. There's a lot
this is you have one really, really large site in our area, And then you have a smaller site that touts being the best in our area, which clearly they aren't. And that's the site that won't allow us to go on there because they know that we have really good information and it's not coming from them. So, but anyway, whatever.
Is that the one that has the KFC deal going on? The kid felon combo?
No, that's a different one.
Well, that's it.
There is a lot of social media sites here locally, you guys.
There's a lot in the particular community we're in, and there's a lot of them that they just kind of behave. Like
this would
children.
be the second or third largest one. It's more of a conservative site too, so you think that they would allow our content on there, but whatever.
Gotcha. Well, very good. It's that's all right.
Northwest
Digital News is here to help people who actually are interested.
We don't need that site because we have so many other good avenues to get our stuff up on.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
But if anybody here wants to share our broadcast to any of the social media sites here locally, you are more than welcome to. And then you guys can figure out on your own which sites that won't allow our content. And then
in any area you may hail from, because we have people from all around the country. And one of our newest people who's actually been doing a bit of conversation with us on Twitch is actually from the country of Wales.
Wales.
Yes, very cool. We were having a conversation one day about us being the best here in the United States, talking about the USA. And we had an interesting conversation with somebody from Wales. So very nice.
He never did come back to debate us, but we hope someday he will.
Yeah.
Remember, because we were going to argue about who was better?
Yes.
It's not really an argument when we're right.
Oh!
It's not really an argument. No, argument is actually not the proper word for just having a discussion with somebody. We have a lot of friendly discussions with people here on the broadcast, on the multiple platforms that we broadcast on. And it's always
like Patreon.
Entertaining, enjoyable, and interesting to hear all the views from all around the country and all around the world. So that's awesome. Let's have a little conversation about the flag situation at the Capitol. So you have some information on this, Chris. Yeah. Apparently, a few people thought that the White House didn't fly the flag at half-mast for long enough.
First of all, let's start over, and let's we'll just take this on for what it is.
For context, this has to do with the John McCain passing away over
the
weekend.
We're talking about the death of John McCain, which
correct.
I will start by saying that when I first got out into politics, when I was 17 years old, John McCain was like a hero to me. Mm-hmm. And, watching him over the last several years, that was all undone by his actions and things that he's done, doing research into who he is. And I'm not going to go into that, but I honestly believe that he hasn't been thinking right for a very long time. And that's due to,
he's had the brain tumor.
The brain tumor that he's had. And so
perhaps
you see... right now, what I see going on is the media not celebrating the death of John McCain, but throwing it out there in a way that they know that it's going to get under the skin of our president. They don't care about the death of John McCain. What they care about is smearing the president with this death.
So what are they doing?
It's like KATU, they're out in front of the White House and people are complaining because the flag's not lowered. And according to...
But the flag was lowered.
The flag was lowered, right. Believe it or not, folks, there are rules, procedures to our flag and how we fly it, we raise it. And under section, let me see here, 4 of the U.S. Code, number 4.
Kyle, if you'd find that and put that on the screen, too.
The U.S. Code Title 4, code chapter or verse 7, whatever you want to call it, is kind of written similar to like a verse in the Bible. But anyway, basically, it's basically when you get the death of a senator or somebody like that, the congressman or something like that, the procedure is you fly the flag on the day of the death and then the following day afterwards, and then the flag goes back up to full staff. The White House has done this. And now the media is out there trying to cause an issue, trying to cause some more ruffus because the flag is not still lowered. So basically, now keep in mind, the media wants to smear the president because that they know that the president and John McCain have not gotten along, and that they're also making a big deal about how the fact that President Obama has been requested to speak at John McCain's funeral along with former Bush. And so they're gonna take this death and they're gonna try to smear it with the president, and I believe that's what they're doing with the flag thing here, making a big deal out of nothing. That is basically what the media does for now, is it trumps up charges, to try to get Trump to look bad. I mean, he could go out and rescue a building full of burning kids and save every single one of them in there, and something would be wrong with it, and the media would not report on the fact that he saved them, but he didn't save the cat. The cat died, and so he's an evil, racist bastard because he didn't save the cat. And so we're seeing something similar thing, in my opinion, going on now with the death of John McCain. And they will twist this and turn it and pull it and push it and pick at it until the funeral is done and over with on Thursday. You watch. It'll get much more circus-like. And there'll be this big, oh my gosh, President Obama is here. Oh yes, you'll see all this, and it'll be a big deal, and that's just how it will go.
So a little piece of trivia for people: when a flag is put at half-mast, what's the proper procedure for that for the day? Kyle, you're reading a document which should help you with that. But what's the first thing that happens to the flag before it is put at half-mast? What's the first thing that happens?
Let me. I'm on page 6, section 4.
Okay, so let me help you out with that. Is the flag, when it's put up the morning of the day that you're going to put it at half-mast, or on any days you can put it at half-mast, the flag goes all the way to the top of the pole, and then is lowered to half-mast. But it goes all the way up first, and then comes down to half-mast. And as Chris just pointed out, in recognition of John McCain on the day of the death, this is what they did. And on the day following his passing, they also did it.
Right.
There's an interesting thing about John McCain, is he is a guy who hasn't played along, he's a well-known Republican from Arizona. He hasn't played along party lines on a number of different issues, and both Republicans and Democrats tend to vilify anybody in their parties who don't follow a party line. And John was one of these characters who did this fairly regularly throughout, and more in recent years. And to your point earlier, Chris, is that on some of the issues, including Obamacare, on some of the issues, the conservatives felt his vote was very much out of line, and subsequently John became a villain to people who were against Obamacare and a hero of people who were. Well, the interesting thing is that I was during my time in officer school. This was with the United States Army. During my time in the officer school, we were actually, there's a lot of stories because we went through military heroes, past leaders of this country. We went through even like all the various battles of the Indian Wars that the United States Army has been in. But there was a ton of U.S. history, and I really enjoyed a lot of those aspects. And just visiting about the details of what happened in various situations. I'm just going to say this. John McCain was a POW. A lot of people know the stories about him being shot down during a bombing raid. He, I think, broke both legs and an arm, or both arms and a leg. But 3 limbs he broke in crashing that plane. Apparently was tortured by the people of Vietnam, the Viet Cong, I guess you could call them that. And so he endured a fair amount of torture from them. He comes from a long line of people in the military. His family actually dates all the way back to, I believe, George Washington. And in the signing of the treaty, the end of the war in World War II, in the pictures that are taken of the Japanese leadership that's on the ship signing the end of the war there in Japan, that some of John McCain's family members or family member are actually in that picture on the deck of the ship, one of the observers of the signing of the end of the war. And so he has a fair amount of family history as far as military-wise. I can tell you, though, that there's more to all of those stories, too. And what was shared with us in officer school is really to illustrate to people how things can go right and how things can go wrong. And we looked at the entirety of that history, and I can tell you, having heard a lot of the story, even around his capture as a POW and some of the things that happened and the things that happened around other people who were with him there and their comments, I can honestly say that I get it and I understand people who call John McCain, who's now passed, a great war hero, a POW, a statesman, all these other things. I get that and understand it, and I see where they're coming from. People who have been his detractors based on military experience, I also get that and understand that too, because I've seen the other side and heard the other sides of those stories. And that was actually research that we did in officer school. Here's a really interesting thing. I just want to give you another parallel story. You guys remember when a female soldier by the name of Jessica Lynch was taken captive in Iraq? Do you remember that?
I remember hearing something about it.
Okay, so there was a lot of news coverage around Jessica Lynch. And Kyle, if you would, just see if you can find something here real quick on Jessica Lynch. And I want to share with you just some of the counter, the other side of, the stories that get published in the news. It can be really important during a time of war. So if you would bring her on the screen here so people know who we're talking about. It can be really important that the country and the media has people that they can create as heroes. And this was Jessica Lynch, who was captured during the invasion of Iraq. Well, when we talk about the other sides of stories that happen, you have to remember that there were a significant number of her comrades killed in this ambush that her convoy suffered. And one of the things that they shared with us in officer school, they asked us, hero or zero? Were kind of the question. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. Was this a true American hero, a soldier, or was this somebody who was a zero? You be the judge of this. And they shared the details of what actually happened in this skirmish, in this firefight where she was taken. Now, like everybody else who were in these Humvees and in this convoy, she was armed with M16, several clips of magazines of ammunition, grenades, and I believe carrying...
She was armed with assault weapons.
Yes, and I believe carrying a 9mm pistol on her hip too.
Not an assault weapon.
Yes, not an assault weapon. Yes. Anyway, all the weapons systems that she had on her and the things that she could use to not only defend herself, but save the lives of those around her, she deployed none of them. And the question is pointed out is that if you're in a firefight, let's say the three of us are out deployed somewhere overseas, and we get attacked by somebody, and I'm the only one firing and defending my position. Who's the hero? Who's the zero? And when you look at a situation like that, and you go, well, why didn't this individual use their weapons? Why didn't they deploy their grenades? Were they a coward? Was it possible that life could have been saved had this person actually used the weapon systems that they had to defend themselves and to defend their fellow comrades? I can tell you that there were more people, more soldiers in our officer school that said she never belonged where she was, that she was a coward, that she was not a hero, that, and a great majority of the conversation went that direction. So peers, fellow soldiers, judge this person not as a hero in combat. So that's just an example of where there's always another side to a story. And for the people who actually spent time, and this goes back to the situation with John McCain, the folks that spent time around him in his time of service and those that were in the same POW camp have some interesting stories to share. And I'll just leave it at that.
Just go read them, you guys.
Yeah, there's a lot of them out there. And so when you
could
see
have thought
that,
Hanoi Jane was bad.
yeah, when you see the stories, you have a little bit of understanding as to why there are detractors.
These stories have always been around out there about John McCain, but like you said, Kevin, he had a lot of family history. He had when he was actually in his cell in the POW camp, his dad was a politician, I think a senator, real high up. And he was actually offered a chance to come home. And, it would have been a great embarrassment for the United States and stuff like that. And so John McCain did actually one thing right, and that is that he stayed there with his fellow soldiers and did not use that. But that's as far as I'm willing to go now. And remember, this guy was my hero. As a kid. I mean, this is the guy I looked up to, and it was really sad to watch his downfall. And I'd like to argue that probably the first time that I noticed that things weren't going right mentally for him, in my opinion, is when he got out there in 2007 and started singing "Bomb, Bomb, 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 Iran." That is not something that somebody as a president of the United States would say at any type of rally, but he did. And so I think he was kind of starting to slip even before then. But, he's gone. Like I said, the media is going to use this to drag Trump through the mud with. And that's too bad. But it should be over by Thursday, you guys.
Well, for those to whom John McCain was a statesman, a hero, and whatever else, this is an opportunity to celebrate the life and passing.
They could be talking about John McCain, but what are they talking about?
Yeah.
The problems between him and the president, the problems with the flag. I mean, these are the things that they are choosing to talk about in the media instead of being, respectful about what some would call a national hero passing. So, there you go.
I have this leads me to another subject, and It's in part because of a comment that then Republican presidential candidate Trump had made. He was referring to John McCain when he said he was a hero because he was captured. I like people who weren't captured. And yeah, that's inappropriate comment, didn't need to be made. And Trump does have a lot of comments like that.
Yeah, but he still didn't sing "Bomb, Bomb, 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 Iran."
That's correct. That's correct. He did not sing that. And you have to, I don't care where you sit on the political spectrum. You have to recognize, I hear these people that believe that, the life is ending and the USA is ending and everything else. You guys, that's hogwash. President Trump says a lot of immature, very inappropriate things. And sometimes I wonder if he's 4 or if he's 40.
I think he does it on purpose.
Perhaps.
I honestly believe he does it on purpose. While you guys are over here complaining about what Mr. Trump said today, he's over here getting his agenda done over here while you guys are too busy over here complaining about, he said the N-word possibly in a meeting. The N-word argument is a no argument with me because I grew up in the early 90s when the music that I listened to, every other word was the N-word. And so it's just kind of bred into me, that it's okay to use that word. And that's because society was moving that way in the early 90s. And every other word was, hey. I'm afraid to say the word because if I even say it, I'll be a racist. But if I use it in the proper terminology, as in the music I listen to and the words from these people who are singing the music, everybody should be able to use this word freely. But we can't.
I invite people to state on the live stream here on the broadcast, I invite them to state, just take one issue because I want to hear the word everything. State one issue that and cite give the citations that support your comment, but give an issue that you believe Trump has totally screwed up in this country, and then to share or show that you have the capability of seeing both sides of a number of different issues and that you're actually just not making a partisan comment. I want you to also then share what is something that he has made much better in this country, because we know there's many of both.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, one thing he's not good at is acronyms. Okay.
Yeah, he's not good at acronyms.
And Kyle's got that right up here. You know, for those of you who may not notice, we do have a little bit of other breaking news today, and I'm going to
pop it on the screen.
Going to break out the whiteboard for this one. But you ready?
We're ready.
All right. So we now have a new trade order. And it's not going to show up, is it?
Tip it forward.
Tip it forward. There we go. We now have a new trade agreement with Mexico. NAFTA is no longer there. So our president isn't good at, I think it's acronyms. Is that what it is?
Acronyms.
Right. Okay. So now instead of NAFTA, we have the USMTA, and that is the United States-Mexico Trade Agreement. That was done, and President Trump talked about that this morning. Kyle, if you want to throw that article up there.
Bring it down.
Things are going to change.
NAFTA is out. A new trade deal with Mexico is officially here.
And we now have to just negotiate a trade deal with Canada, which sounds like Canada is really willing to sit down at the table because they understand that we actually have a true leader for president now. And they have come to the realization that they aren't going to be able to walk all over us like the last president allowed everybody to do. And that we have a president that's going to get us, our nation and our citizens, the best deal possible like he did in the NAFTA. I'm sorry.
yeah, you screwed it up.
The
USMTA.
Yes. I was hoping that he was going to be able to.
Because Kevin said so.
Yeah, because Kevin said so.
Yeah, there you go.
So, there we go. New trade deal with Mexico. Things are looking up for us. And what did you say about the wall, Kevin? Should just be a matter of time?
that perhaps is coming too. Yeah. Right on its heels.
So we had to get that in there, you know, new trade deal, because that is a big deal. So, all
right, just shot you another post over there that I want to share here on this broadcast today. So this is something that I have heard from now and again from various areas around the country. And these are comments made by people with prior service. So they're veterans in given branches of the military. I'm going to say that this is a very small minority of people that I have known in uniform to ever say this. Out of the thousands, I'd have to say it's like 0.1%, if even that. Okay, who state this? So here's the reason I want to share this. If you look on the back here, this is the oath of enlistment going into the United States Army. I'm actually quite familiar with this because I've administered this oath many times for soldiers. And I want to read this for everybody. It says, I, and state your name, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over me according to regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice, so help me God. This is the oath of enlistment. Where does it say that I'm going to die for my country? You see those words in there anywhere?
No.
So when a soldier says, I gave an oath to die for my country, where is that language in this oath of enlistment?
Well, to me, that would fall under the part of defending the Constitution of the United States against all enemies. If I'm defending against an enemy, that means that I could possibly put my life on the line, meaning that in this oath that I would be willing to put my life on the line.
If I am successfully defending the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, it means I'm alive.
Right, yeah, but, you know.
Dead people tell no tales, and dead people defend no constitutions or the United States.
Okay, so maybe these folks that are taking the oath are throwing it upon themselves to include their lives on the line to do this. I mean, because clearly their oath, in their mind, these guys that are saying that, they have come off with the fact somewhere that they believe that putting their life on the line is part of defending this country.
In most cases, these were extreme short-termers in the military who make these comments. That they give an oath to die for their country.
I see what you're saying. So somebody that was in for like maybe a year and hurt themselves and then are out will always tout that they
say that I gave an oath to die for my country when in fact they did not.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Go ahead. You have a comment there. You want to share that?
So a couple Morning Joe on Twitch said, I'm a European, but all I know is that. But he needs to know the sort of soft power, or as I call it, diplomacy. He has zero support from any country at this point. I get that from the view of the citizens that loves digging for coal and the easing on church tax loves him, but the fact is that abroad he creates more problems than he ever intended on solving.
In reference to President Trump.
Yes. All
right, thanks for your comment there on Twitch. So going back to this oath of enlistment, I just want to make something abundantly clear. This actually goes back to one of the comments made by General Patton best summarizes what this actually means. There were soldiers prior to being deployed in the war who were asking the question that when we pray to God, or whose side is God taking, Patton had made the comment that it's our job to arrange the meeting. It's not it's our job. Go ahead.
I can't believe how many people believe the president should be out on top of the White House raising up the flag. By the way, breaking news, the White House staff flag is down to half-mast again.
Today.
So they just now put the flag back down. I imagine Mr. Trump ran up on the roof of Piers and lowered it. So apparently everybody seems to think that that's Trump's job, and so Trump screwed this up. And don't worry about that guy that they hired to put the flag up and down every morning. It's not his fault. It's Trump's. So anyway, sorry.
It's all right. So to go back to this oath of enlistment, that if I made an oath to die for my country and I'm not dead, I have failed my oath. What I did give an oath to was to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that oath I can only keep if I'm alive. General Patton talks about this and says that it is our job to make the other, and he referred to them as the bastards, it's our job to make the bastards die for their country. Exactly. Somebody who attacks the United States or attacks the Constitution, it's the job of soldiers to defend.
My God, I wonder what would happen if you threw Donald Trump and him in the same room together. I bet a lot of great things would have happened.
They were actually two men cut from very similar cloth.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I can't.
You're talking about General Patton and Donald Trump.
Yes, can you imagine those two guys in the same room? It would be absolutely incredible. It'd be like, who do you listen to?
Patton was already eligible for his 4-star general, but he was 3-star at the time. He had his staff go get his 4 stars and pin him on himself. He just like, I deserve it. Put the 4 stars on. and generally that's done with your superiors and in an official ceremony. Yeah, giving you the promotion, so but he was like, "Oh, hey, I'm already 4-star." So he put him on. Yeah, he got himself into trouble in a lot of cases because it's honest. It's the interesting thing about all of that, and the honest perspective of it is that there were in many cases he said things that were totally true, but that wasn't politically savvy thing to say.
Like what that guy said on Twitch. Yeah, it wasn't politically savvy to say.
Yeah, it wasn't politically savvy. So here's Patton. He had given a speech, I think somewhere in Africa, but he had given a speech, and following the speech, somebody asked him about Russia, because he had mentioned about all the different allies in the war, and he doesn't mention Russia, which the Soviet Union was one of our allies in World War II. Doesn't mention them.
Is that when the collusion started, Kevin?
Perhaps. Who knows?
Way back in World War II, we colluded with the Russians?
Way back in World War II, yeah, we were colluding with the Russians. Actually, no, General Patton was asked by somebody in the audience why he didn't mention Russia when he talked about the allies of America. And he says that the Soviet Union never has been our ally, never will be our ally. And while we're here with all of these forces, we might as well kick their butts now because they will be a problem for us in the future. Was he right? The Cold War started.
Yeah, I mean, yes. It was the big land grab after, the war was over. And
Patton was dead on the money.
Yeah.
But
just like we should have sent him to Vietnam.
But that's when, on the heels of that and a few other things, that's when General Eisenhower, who was running all that operation, decided, hey, we're going to bust you down to, yeah, he got dinged for doing it. But it's the interesting thing though is when you talk about somebody who was like a Patton, which is an interesting parallel to President Trump. Somebody like a Patton, he was actually the most feared U.S. general by the Germans, and subsequently,
I'm pretty sure the Russians were pretty scared of him too.
Oh yeah, when the invasions happened in Germany, like you remember the Normandy Beach and Omaha Beach and all these beaches were being stormed. The reason that there was a ton of loss of life there, but the reason why it wasn't significantly higher is because the Germans were actually expecting that attack to come from General Patton,
right,
who was south of them, not out in the water.
Right. They'd set it up to make it look like Patton was going to be the guy that broke through the lines.
They had a big inflatable blow-up battalion size units of tanks around General Patton where he was stationed at, and there were no armored vehicles, well, very few there at all. But the Germans thought, General Patton's coming our way. And they were waiting for that move to happen.
They never expected the beaches to be stormed in Normandy. They never expected it.
So very savvy on the.
I mean, that almost didn't happen because of the weather. And they're like, "Look, if we don't go now, we will never ever go." I mean, it was that close to being canceled, and who knows what would have happened then. This is what really gets me about the kids of today. It's like they have no clue that this happened, or that any of this that happened with Germany, World War I or World War II, they don't get that. They don't understand what it is to have your own nation exterminate a portion of your population and then start taking over the rest of the world. They have no clue. When they call somebody a Nazi, they don't know what they're talking about.
I want to share a story that helps highlight what an actual war hero is. Keep in mind, too, though, that this individual doesn't regard themselves as a war hero at all. And the reason being is he came back alive. Okay? But let me share with you the story of a gentleman. In fact, when I made the decision, it was before I turned 36. When I made the decision to join the U.S. Army, I was an adult, a business owner, well into my adult life, and I decided to go serve my country. I wasn't signing up because, there was some college benefits or a bonus for something, which I hear a lot of people saying, hey, if you want your school paid for, just join up with the Army. Yeah, that's just another form of government welfare is what that is. If you're joining the service and you want to go serve your country, that's something different. And because that's what most of the people are who come into these offices are, looking at the benefits. When I first went to go see a recruiter, I was told over and over about there's a bonus for this MOS, a bonus for that MOS, bonus for that MOS. Here's the biggest bonuses, you could be potentially looking at. And, if you already got college, there's ways you can get your previous college paid for if you have any existing student loans. And he went on and on and on about all this stuff. And I'm sitting here listening to him. And after I got done, I just said, Sergeant, with all due respect, I'm twice the age of an average person who walks here into your office looking at potentially getting into the service. One of the first things you might have started with was, nice to have you here to serve your country, because that is actually the only reason I'm sitting here. Now, let me explain to you why that was the only reason. There were many people that I met prior to being in the service myself, but one of them was a gentleman by the name of Cliff Bach. And Cliff Bach's story is very significant because you remember the stories around Normandy and Omaha Beach and how many soldiers were killed. Cliff Bach was on one of the transports in the second wave hitting Normandy Beach. And so the first wave were almost an entire loss of life. There were guys that made it, to the banks and undercover and stuff like that, but a huge percentage of them killed in the first wave. Cliff Bach was in the second wave. And when the back of the transport opened and that big metal gate fell down where the soldiers are basically and they were dropping them further out into the water than they had planned on because of how much fire they were taking. And so they go into water, which is, as Cliff and several said, were like chest deep or even deeper than chest deep. And what they're expecting to land into was water that was, maybe up to the waistline. So they're dropping into very deep water, leaving the transport. But the back door opens. Cliff is one of the soldiers near the back. He takes a bullet through, I believe, the left shoulder, one in the left leg, and another one right above his right knee. He gets hit with 3 rounds that he recalls, not only because he's struck by the rounds, but just the shock of being hit. Cliff falls into the water. Now, he is fading in and out of consciousness because of loss of blood and everything, but he remembers a hand grabbing him, dragging him, and then stopping, and then grabbing him. This happens many, many times before Cliff finally arrives at the wall where he's in an area where he can't be shot at by the... Well, then he loses complete track of time, blacks out, and several days later wakes up in one of these medic tents there. Cliff relates that he remembers several times something brushing on the back of his head like a branch or a twig and trying to move it away, and he couldn't. And so then later he's visiting with the medics and some of the people who had brought him to the medic tent, came to see him. It turns out that this hand who grabbed him and picked him up, and that happening several times, were fellow soldiers attempting to save Cliff's life, and that fellow soldier being shot and killed.
That's a bummer deal there.
Many, many people killed trying to save Cliff Bach. And the branch that was behind his head, it was related to Cliff that where he was laying on the beach, underneath his head was the shot off hand of another dead soldier.
Ah, that's a fantastic story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was the character and the fabric of some of the people that I got a chance to meet before I went into the service. And meeting guys like Cliff and Major Don Bode, who is a member of the DAV. The DAV is the Disabled American Vets. There are some absolutely amazing people in the DAV. The unfortunate thing is that the DAV quite often gets a bad name and is viewed by many of active soldiers as not being this great organization. And it's not because the DAV doesn't have a lot of people like Major Bode or Cliff Bach in it. It does. Both of those guys, by the way, are old enough now that they're probably deceased. But anyway, the DAV does have a lot of great heroes and a lot of great soldiers in it. Where the DAV got its bad name was a lot of young soldiers who would go into the service, find some kind of, get hurt or, twist their ankle or something silly like that, get out of the service, go apply for disability, make a nuisance of themselves long enough that at some point the military puts them on disability, and it can be a given percentage. If somebody puts you on 100% disability, I believe right now that number is around $3,300 or $3,500 a month is what they pay. So if your disability is a given percentage, just do the math. Somebody who's 30% or 40% considered disabled, just take that number times the given amount. You can find it online. That is what has given the DAV the name to where many soldiers, when I later did salutes like on a Thursday morning show to American veterans, and I mentioned the DAV a few times, I got calls from people who were longtime members of the service and said, we'd really prefer if you didn't mention that so often, because the DAV is actually full of a lot of young soldiers who went in, maybe did basic training, maybe did advanced, the AIT, advanced individual training, and some minor thing happens to them, and they're now on permanent lifetime disability, either a given percentage or full disability. And just think about something. Let's say a soldier twists their ankle or hurts their foot or, bangs up an elbow or even separates a rib. Are they permanently disabled?
No, I would think that the rib would heal, the ankle would heal.
Have you, in high school football, you ever heard of somebody like separate a shoulder or whatever, twist an ankle or break a foot? Or I had soldiers who busted bones, broke legs, separated shoulders, elbows, etc. right in basic training. You know what they did with them? They gave them the medical care that they needed. They stayed on post while they healed, and then they did what's called recycle. So they entered another basic training camp just weeks down the road after they healed up. But they went on. And that's the beauty of being, 18, 19, 20 years old, is you heal very rapidly, very quickly. The prospect of being permanently disabled from a injury in the Army is dang near slim and none.
So if you're like, well, hi, Catherine. If you, so if somebody's like 20% disabled, will they get that paycheck then for the rest of their lives from that?
If they're considered 20% disabled, they'll get 20% of the
and then can
full
they go
disability
out
pay.
and work another job and still receive those funds?
Quite often, that's exactly what they do.
So they will get money from the military plus whatever. Do they get less money if they are working in?
I don't know all the nuances of that. I know that there can be situations like that with other things like pensions or Social Security disability, things like that. So potentially that's there with service as well. But the other things they get as well out of that is lifetime free medical benefits too. So there's it's a pretty ongoing list of benefits that a soldier can get if they succeed in being determined as being fully disabled. Now, I want to share with you something. There's actually a few different times that I was injured in the military. One was a very significant, what people would recognize as a hip pointer. I got to the point where I could hardly walk, but I had run so much, done so many road marches and everything else that I developed a hip pointer, and it took probably a good month and a half, 2 months before that bugger healed up. It was a pain in the hip to have that. Another injury was one in which I dove into an area to get away from. It was a exercise that we were doing in Fort Lewis, Washington. I separated at least a couple ribs. There might have been 3. I tore loose the, it's called the erector spinae muscle that goes up the right side. So on about mid-back, I had this huge knot of meat. That was the muscle that had come up my back and detached from my lower back area. I'll tell you what, I was in so much pain I couldn't breathe. But I went and got therapy. I went and got it taken care of. I'm not disabled today.
Yeah, I had it.
That was a very severe injury. I'm not disabled at all. I got healed up from that and taken care of it, and I'm not on a military disability thing today.
At least you didn't get like an ankle or like a foot disability, you know, or like, you know, because those can take you out.
Those can take you out. Yeah.
I've only had like a couple of I have back issues and hip issues. I've never gotten disability or anything like that. I've always worked, and I've always worked performance-based jobs, folks. For you people out there that don't understand that, that means you work a job, and based off your performance, you either get raises or you get shit canned. Oh, sorry. But, you know, anyway, but the hardest, injury I had was to the back and where I fell down steps. I came out of a place called Christian Brothers Towing. I don't know if anybody ever remembers that around here. And they had, they didn't have their steps very well. And I came down and I went down their steps, boy. And let me tell you, that was some fun there. But nothing, you know, I mean, I imagine if I went to the doctor, I'd probably have a little bit, but not enough to even worry about it. So
going to Kyle's point of twisting your ankle or hurting your foot could take you out. How many times do you think this happens in football practice in high school?
My kid, sprained his ankle a couple times a week, and we would have to wrap it when he gets home, but he was out on the field the next day.
Even kids in marching band, since marching band is very technical, let me tell you that. But leg injuries and, you know.
Did you know of any high school kids being injured in any sports in school?
Very common.
Are they on lifetime disability?
Not that I know of.
I didn't think so.
And I don't know. I mean, they could
I was actually called one time by somebody with prior service who was stunned to find out that I wasn't on permanent disability.
Yeah.
What? You didn't file for disability? No, was I supposed to file for disability? No, that's why there's like hundreds of thousands of disability fraud cases in the United States, because so many people thought that was the appropriate response when you leave service to go and apply for disability. But yeah. Anyway, enough on that. We got any other stories you want to share?
I found, since we were talking about military and stuff like that, one of my military friends, and I have quite a few of them, both retired and still active, posted this really cool video. I'm sure you guys have all seen it, but you're going to see it one more time because Kyle's got it up and we're going to play it. And this is just absolutely Probably one of the most incredible things I have ever seen. This guy is absolutely insane, and I want to meet him. Anyway,
play the video.
That's just insane.
Não é possível. Lembrei disso aí de ver os F-16 fazendo.
Existe uma manobra que eles fazem que tem o nome de cobra, né? Na verdade, aquilo foi criado pelo piloto russo, aquela desaceleração, que tem o sobrenome de chupa-câmbio. E é o que ele está fazendo.
This is not a Harrier jet.
O recurso no setor de pista. O avião está na vertical, andando em pé.
It's just incredible. I mean, look at that. And then just gone. That.
And you wonder why they're so
impressive.
maneuverable in the sky.
Oh,
I'll tell
man.
you what, that is insane.
But that was cool as heck, dude.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Sorry, I just felt we better share that with everybody.
I kind of want to see his perspective or her perspective, whoever was in that plane. I just want to see like a head cam.
like this.
You know, you get anywhere where you're close to terra firma, the ground, when you're flying, and the risk of injury or death just goes up substantially. That person has taken their life in their hands doing what they
filed
did.
for disability.
And they might have applied for disability. Yes. All right, well, that's going to be a wrap here on Northwest Digital News. Thanks always for joining us. Tune in tomorrow for Tech Tuesday. Harry Brailsford's back on here on Northwest Digital News and broadcast throughout the week. So we look forward to seeing you again soon. Kevin Hunter, Chris Bornstead, Kyle Torgeson, the Whiz Kid here on Northwest Digital News. Till next time.
The Whiz
Take care.
Kid.